Hey guys, welcome to our webinar for the Action Movie Effects Rebel Way course. I'm Tyler Britton, and I'm joined by the legend himself, Igor Zanic. A little bit about myself. I've been working in effects for roughly 10 years, working as a senior effects artist and a effects supervisor. I've worked at a bunch of different companies for Method Studios, Fuse Effects, ILM, as well as working on a wide range of movies and TV shows, from big budget Marvel movies to smaller cable TV shows. And hopefully all that experience is something that I'll pass on to you guys through this workshop as we kind of go through and make some cool effects. And Igor, everyone knows about him, water legend himself. He's going to be teaching the water dynamics part of this course. So it's going to be split between some work from me and some work from Igor, and supplemented by some other stuff from Saber and lighting and compositing. So a really wide range of stuff that we're going to be going over in this course. I really hope to provide a well-rounded course, not just focusing on water, not just focusing on pyro, but both those things: large-scale water, small-scale water, and we're going to be going over some of that right now. So to show off all the cool stuff that we're providing, we have our trailer, which I will bring up. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff that we're going to be going over in this workshop. So we're going to be going over some large-scale water effects with ocean spectrum and whitewater. We're going to be going over some missile trails, really intricate interactions with Godzilla, the water and explosions. We see some awesome missile trails, as well as some stuff underwater as well. So we're going to be going into particulate bubbles, lighting this, rendering it, and just adding lots of cool effects in here, as well as shot composition. So we're going to be showing you, okay, how do we take a shot and kind of add some camera shake, add some light animation to it, and add some other effects onto it as well. So yeah, we're going to be going all this, and then everyone's favorite, explosions. So of course, we're going to be going over these explosions right here. And we have a shot like the one that we have here, where we have lots of different effects in here. We have explosions, missile trails, water, animation, all with high quality assets that we're going to be providing to you. So we're going to be providing pretty much everything you see here. So we're going to be providing the hit files. We're going to be providing the assets, the cameras, which we've had done by people in the industry. So you not only get the resources for the recordings for how to do everything, but also the hit files themselves, the lighting setups, the HDRIs, the nuke scripts. We're not holding anything back. Yeah, so I can go over through some of the effects that we have are showing here. I briefly mentioned them earlier, but we have some large-scale ocean spectrum effects. We have ocean shots, and the trick here is to not show repeating patterns, and we want some breakup. So we're going to be going over into some of those techniques. Whitewater from the ships. That's something that effects artists are always going to have to do if you're doing water. We have some cannon blasts as well. So we're going to be going over how we would do these cannon blasts, and then showing how you could, do it on one cannon and then use that same setup if you have multiple cannon blasts and multiple effects. Like if you had other ships firing at each other, you could take what we're teaching you and go from there and do whatever you want with it. Some awesome missile trails, and then shots like this where we have multiple stuff all in one. We have explosions that I'm going to be going over. We're going to be the missile trails that I'm going to be going over as well, and then all kind of brought together into a scene. And we're going to be, lighting, compositing. So in a shot like this, we have some really highly detailed water effects, and we kind of show you through the process of, okay, what each setting does, like why is it important, what look does it provide, and different wedges from there. So we're not saying, oh, hey, here's the file that we used. Not only, we're providing the results, but we're also showing you why we didn't go with some other results. And a shot like this takes a lot of iterations, and we're not just going to be adding effects onto this. We're also going to be doing the textures, not painting the textures, but setting up the shaders, setting up everything. So it not only works in Karma CPU, but Karma XPU as well. I know for this, we've been using Karma CPU just because of the VRAM constraints, but we open the door if you have a strong graphics card to use XPU as well. So in a shot like this, we have bubbles, we have particulate, we have lots of cool comp, lots of cool lighting, lots of comp effects in here, and we're going to be all doing this whole shot from start to finish. Scene like this where we have it erupting and going up, we'll be going over this as well. So in a situation like this where we have the missile going up and then there's other missiles in the background, how can we separate our sims and wedge them in a thoughtful and time-efficient manner? So we're going to be going over that. And again, we're going to be using a lot of the techniques that we're going to be doing in the industry for this. So we're going to say, hey, if I was at a big studio, how would I break this effect down and do it in an efficient way? Where, in a studio, you have a big render farm, lots of cool stuff. But, at home, you might have a render farm, but a lot of you guys, it's just your machine, right? And so you're just using that. So how do we optimize it for your machine and make it valuable as possible? So yeah, we're going to be also going over a lot of interesting water effect from Igor. Of course, you guys know him. He's the best in the business. And then we have an awesome shot like this, which we'll be going over, where again, we have multiple effects. We have lots of cool explosions. We have a shockwave, some comp work. We have an awesome high-quality asset in Godzilla, which we're going to be providing, throughout the shots. And then awesome water work at the end, all in, the same shot. So I'm actually going to be going over one of these shots right now. Igor, did you want to speak to some of the effects in here, or do you want to just keep on going?
Yeah, more or less you said everything that I wanted to share, but yeah, go with your stuff, and then I will share some of Playblast and ideas that I use for this project. So go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was just a quick overview of everything that we're going to be providing. And I'm going to go into a demo scene right now just to show a glimpse of what we're going to be doing. It's not going to reveal all the secrets, but it's going to hopefully give you a taste of what we can be sending you guys. So we have one of our scenes that we have. I'm going to be demoing. Let me just make sure. Okay, yep, it's recording. You can see this, Igor, right?
Yes, it's all good, man.
Awesome. So this is just an example shot that we have, and this is really close to one of the demo scenes that we're going to be providing. So you're going to be getting scenes like this, and we're going to be going over these scenes in most situations, node by node, and why we did diverge from default settings, why we did this, why we did that. And they're treated as big production shots, that you would find in a studio working on a movie. So, and a lot of these effects are I think at that quality, and hopefully techniques and methodologies that you could use and apply on your own. So we have in this scene, we have a couple things. I just have a water grid line for our ocean. So this is where the water is. Below this is our ocean spectrum. We have our good old Tommy boy right here. So I always have Tommy in my scenes just to give a scale reference for everything. So Tommy is this small, so I always throw Tommy in there just to say, hey, this is a human size. So we're not making effects too big or too small. And I'm sure Igor can speak to this, but scale is everything. It's 100% everything. And sometimes, it's good to start with real world scale, but in most situations, you're going to have to be changing stuff. You're going to have to be changing gravity just a little bit to fit the scale, because sometimes, the Houdini gives you great default values, but those aren't always the case in terms of pyro, in terms of fluid effects, and you're going to have to changing this stuff. So we always add Tommy in here, or good old board Tommy. It's kind of hard to see, but just to give a scale reference for how big he is in the scene, so we can go from there and say, hey, does our debris need to be smaller? Does our white water need to be thinner? Stuff like that. And then in this situation here, we have a whole bunch of shot cameras that we're going to be providing. So we have shot 170, 180, 190, 200, and we can kind of go through here, and we have the switcher node, and if we view the switcher, this switcher will automatically, from the keyframes that we're going to be setting, switch between our different cameras. So I normally don't do this in production, but in this situation, we have one sim for the pyro, and it's going to be used throughout everything. So I normally will have separate setups for each shot and tweak it, because the director's going to always, even if it's one continuous sim and it looks exactly the same, the director or the supervisor is always going to have notes on a per shot basis that are going to be different, and it might not go together all in one sim, but they just like their you're going to be asked to hit notes on a per shot basis, and you might not be able to use all one sim, but in this situation we are, because our supervisor saver like the effects. So when possible, we love to use a sim throughout all these shots. So in this situation, we're fortunate enough to have one big shot that we can kind of use and go through everything and all in one go. So we have one big long sim that's roughly 300 frames. So
yeah, in our case, it was cheaper to simulate one long sim than go per shot basis, because time was limited in our case.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of times you can get away with simming one part and then the next part. But if you think about it, if you have 4 shots, on the last shot, you're going to have to sim the entire thing anyways, right? Because it needs all the pre-roll. So you can kind of cheat it and everything, but it becomes kind of finicky. In this situation, one long sim, we spend a little bit more time to make it look good throughout all the different shots. And that time was well spent, because Igor could just say, hey, let's do this sim. Or I could say, hey, let's do this big explosion sim and go from there. And that little bit of time spent to make the other shots look better was good, because it enabled Igor and I to do one long sim for everything, which is great. And that was also helpful because helped by the fact that our Godzilla animation was just one long sim as well. So if the Godzilla sim was different on a per shot basis, if the animation was different, we wouldn't be able to do that.
Of course.
So we have him kind of sinking in here, and a couple of these other shots. So yeah, in a shot like this, I'm quickly going to go over kind of what this entails and then hand it over to Igor. But we have our missiles in here as well. So each of these missiles they're really tiny, and you can't really see them. We have some missiles coming in from the sides, and right now they're driven by the effects placement. So we have animation. We have effects-driven animation, to where, hey, we're going to be changing something in effects. And sometimes you would have to throw this back to animations to say, hey, I need the missile to hit here at this time, at this spot. And anim would have to go back and redo it every iteration that you're changing the effects, if you'd want to show the director. But in this situation, since it's effects-driven animation, we're saying, hey, no, the missile hits here at this point. How in effects can we do the animation ourselves, so we don't have to send it back to animation? This saves time, this saves money, and it makes your supervisors and producers happy. So situations like that are things that me and Igor try to address within this course, saying, hey, you're going to be given this situation in production. How would we come across this and deal with it? So we already talked about effects-driven animation, so animating our missile trails, our missiles, see, there's a little missile at the end of these. It's kind of hard to see, but how do we animate those to make them efficient and timely as possible? So yeah, we have a shot like this where multiple effects, we have some one-off effects, and we have our water like we talked about. This is really good stuff here. So we have our, effects-driven animation. We can see our little missile coming in, screeching in, gonna time up with our explosion. What I call global controllers. So these are null nodes that we can use to control the whole scene. So you might have a shot that has, in this situation, we have plumes, so explosion plumes. We have streamers, we have debris. How can we drive this in a centralized location without having a bunch of different parameters spread throughout our sim? So here we have just a few parameters like division size and wedges that we're going to be using to split up our simulation. How can we create parameters of that could be used throughout multiple setups? If you go to ILM, if you go to, I'm sure other shoe studios do this, but they adopt this workflow of having, big setups and then driven by one, a main node sometimes. So you'll often find like a controller node like this, where you'll find these settings in here. You'll find your division size, you'll find your start frames, you'll find your pre-roll, you'll find a whole bunch of different stuff in here. So we go over the advantages and disadvantages of using a setup like this and why we went with this in our workflow. We have our setup nodes, so we have our frustrums, we have our collision. Again, sourcing everything from a central location, so we don't have all these nodes spread out through your setup. And so these nodes can be referred to by multiple different effects. So hey, our collision that we're using to drive our plumes is the same that we're going to be using to drive our streamers and debris and other stuff. And then, if you would have water effects in there as well, they could be used to drive that as well. But that's something that Igor did in a separate scene, and he has his own take on how to do everything. So you not only get my take on how to accomplish something like this, but you also get, industry professionals and how they would do. So you get a wide range of workflows, and then hopefully enough different workflows to give you the best workflow, and you can choose what you would like to do and what workflow you would like to adopt. So we just present ideas and present workflows, and then say, hey, it's up to you of how you want to approach this. But we're always trying to start you at a baseline of industry standards and from our experience of a decade plus. So we have these, we have some waves, which are what I call this little shock wave right here. So how do we drive this, Saber really wanted this to be like a killer shot that knocks Godzilla down. So, hey, maybe there's a little something in this ammunition and it causes big shock wave, and what does that entail? So we have some pyro, we have a distortion wave. We're going to be going over this in comp, how to achieve this, some really cool one-off effects like this, and then what everyone loves, the explosion. So we have our explosion plumes that we have in here. And then this is the whole setup for the plume. It's slightly missing a few things just in this demo scene that I'm providing right here. But this is it. Like, this is the whole, all the stuff for the plume. So it's really not that much stuff. I don't have a lot of things hidden in subnets away, but I try to keep things as straightforward as possible. So we have our emitter, we have our ground, our wave, our frustrum. And again, this scene is a little bit older, and I organize things a bit better. We're using Axiom to sim everything. So Axiom, I think, is an awesome solver. It's a GPU-driven solver, and I think 5 to 10 times faster than Houdini Pyro. And you might be saying, hey, I don't have a strong GPU. I don't have Axiom. Well, we provide Pyro alternatives as well, at least for my part that I'm doing Axiom. So for pretty much everything we're providing, for all the main effects, we're providing not only the Axiom files, but we're providing the Pyro, the standard Houdini Pyro information as well. We're going to be going over that, and we're going to be showing you the settings to get hopefully one-to-one in both, and how you can convert Axiom setups to Pyro, and what settings are accomplished. So we're spending a lot of time doing that too. So it's not only for Axiom people, but it's for just everyone else. It's Pyro people as well. So it really gives you all alternatives to do. Everything that at least I did was done in Axiom. Igor can kind of speak to what he did for his water sims later on, but yeah, just providing you with a lot of different tools, because if you go to a studio, you're going to have other solvers as well. They might have their own proprietary stuff. So we're going to be showing you how, we might not know Axiom, but how do we take what we know from Pyro and apply it to Axiom? And then you're going to be in a situation where in your studio that you're going to have the same thing. They're going to have their own solver. It might be Pyro, it might be different than Pyro. You're going to be, where are my settings? How do I know the vernacular? How do I know what's what? And we kind of help you with that transition. And again, it might apply to Pyro, it might apply to something else. We just set you up for the skills and the tools to, when you encounter situations like this, what to do with that. So yeah, a setup like this is pretty straightforward. It's a little bit more disorganized, and we will have our Pyro settings here as well, in addition to our Axiom, and then we have our other effects as well. I go over some debris, which I call lazy debris. So it's a kind of a term that I've done, and it uses the Pyro trail to do some quick debris. So it's a self-given term, lazy debris. So when possible, I like to choose the easiest, most controllable method that we can, and then go from there if we need to. So I'll be talking about my lazy debris setup in here. So we have some debris pieces flying off. They're not quite visible, but they're going to be giving here. And so, yeah, just a few nodes, like how can we create a debris setup that will do all this stuff. And then something also really cool is that we're going to be going over custom HGAs. So here I have this explosion placer. So this is a node that we provide and show how to create really quick explosions. So we have something in here. And if we go to a start frame, how can we create a tool that will add explosions in a artistic, stylized, possibly stylized, artist-driven manner. So in this situation, we're going through, we see our explosions in here, but we can also add explosions. So if you can see right here, we're adding explosion right here, and it sticks, and this explosion sticks on his point, his arm right here. So if we want to add, something in at the end as he's falling, right here, we could do that, right? And it's as simple as that, and it's doing all this tools. So this is, again, industry-driven stuff that I've learned doing tons of explosions for TV, for movies, and we're providing this stuff for you. Not only the HDA itself, but we're going to be going over how to set up the Python states, what code to do, even if you're not a programmer. We kind of go over the minimal code that we have added and say, hey, how can you take this and go from there? So this is all stuff that we're going to be going over. Lots of really cool stuff in here. So this doesn't only apply to explosions, but it can apply to other stuff as well. Spark impacts, dust impacts, any other type of impact that we have here. So we could say, hey, we have these impacts right here. What does this mean for us? And then from this, we can drive our explosions, but also our streamers or debris automatically in our different wedges. So yeah, we go over a lot of stuff in this workshop. This is some of the Pyro effects-driven stuff that I'll be going over, but Igor will also be doing the same. So I'll pass over to Igor to share his awesome water knowledge.
Thanks, Taylor. I mean, amazing work you did. So I think the people will love it. So one of the questions was if the ocean wake foam setup are going to be. So one of the problems that you sometimes need to do is that you need to create ship with a long trail foam, and to use like default setup that most of artists use is to simulate like large tank with the trail and like simulate, especially for the large ship, you need to simulate like really long pre-rolls that sometimes can take hours and hours, especially if you have like large ships like 300 meters, the similar one that we have in our shot. So in this case, we are going to present one really simple idea. So all these trails are actually done with the texture. There is no simulation. Only part of simulation is adding a bit of pyro behind the ship just to disturb foam, in the area like the engines part. Everything else, all this part, it's coming just from the single texture. And in this case, this is like really repeated texture that is something like this. And then in our case, I just, replicate a few times, but you have really control to create trail how you want. And especially, you can see here, this is just, this is one texture, this is different texture, but idea is that this trail is, you have very complete control. It's without any seam, so you can make it, the look, you can make it, wider, shorter, however you want. And the other part also is something that sometimes it's really hard to, to get, especially from the seam, and also to extend it to infinity, is this kind of, wakes that going away from the ship. And in our case, we will, provide one really simple idea that can give you control of the look, the length and everything. So we can say that this shot is almost done like without any seam. Only the, like I said, only the part here is done with the pyro and disturb at the point just to give that kind of engine motion. But entire seam, entire scene is done without any flip seam. So all this is like custom control with the foam texture. It can be however you want. It can also be, added even here if it's needed. But, for this demo, we just give you like idea how you can pretty easy add, foam textures behind the ship. And also this can be replicated like on this shot here, like we have, this can be replicated with the entire armada of the ships if you want really efficient, because you don't need to simulate any of it. It's more or less like, oh, we want foam to be, you know, less pattern or more, more with the shapes. You have really complete control because, like I said, it's all based on texture. You can paint however you want. So it give you like complete freedom. So, and sometimes the problem is that when director said, okay, we want different types of, foam, and you need to go back and iterations and providing the new preview for the dailies can take like a few days. But when you are in a crunch time, especially this project, we try to make it like, okay, we have like 1 month to finish everything. So the idea was, let's try to show some of the setup that can fast, easily and really fast solve some of the issues that sometimes can take really days to finish entirely. Especially this is like 300-meter ship, so if you need to have trail almost like 1 mile behind the ship, so it kind of take a lot of time. The second part of of the flip sim is that, especially that we have Godzilla, and Godzilla is kind of huge, and we have like a lot of problems, that you have objects that are moving really fast, especially sometimes, animation is done through the camera, and we have FX guys have a lot of issues that, we need slower animation, or, we need something that animators can, fix, but sometimes, going back to animators just take time. So some of the ideas that I use, like, for example, if we have really speed Godzilla, we have a lot of crazy splashes, how we can force these splashes down, and, different types of look of the flip sim. Do we want to be more splashier or more like, stringy, depending on what kind of look we are after? And in all these examples, we are working on trying to find the setups, especially because we are in a crunch time, like we have 1 month to finish multiple shots. So we are trying to find, setup that will work. And also from all these wedges, we have library. Okay, this is for this shot, we need maybe, stronger speed limit, or, more noise on the water density to be killed. But one of the biggest problem with especially large scale is that many of these, tendrils that are, fly in the air, or, these kind of splashes is like almost like Tyler said, is like human or even bigger than the human scale. So sometimes we want to, especially for the large scale, large impact, large creatures moving in the water, we don't want that main fluid actually add too much of the, stuff fly in the air, because sometimes when the splash happen, all of these, tendrils can, splash somewhere here and make, surface disturb, and there is going to be foam. But this is something that we don't want. And the other thing, like Tyler said, is that sometimes, especially for the flip, we cannot simulate in real scale, because that will just be insane. Simulate billions of particles that you sell every point. So we are trying to cheat and find the ways, and also because we have multiple shots, how that we can organize that we can simulate all the shots, and finish all of them in 1 month. So these are just ideas, like going from like low to mid res and trying to find and nail the look, because this is something that we will add on top. So just we are going over some wedges, how we can create, like, let's say, water density, but there is, like Tyler said, many ways in Houdini that you can do the same thing. You can create density, based on volume, or based on other attributes, and we just want to show some of ideas that are really easy to create. You have complete control. You can put that air density where you want, how you want, and that's kind of the main idea that what I'm going to show here. And the final is like, we can use that air density to actually kill the particles, so that we only have like main surface of volume and something that from which we are going to add like secondary elements. So in our project, I try to stick to it, like, okay, I will create everything in this scene and then try to reuse it in other scenes. And the funny thing was that 95% of the setups in other scene came just from this scene with just a little bit of tweaks. So that kind of save us time, and we managed to finish all the scenes in 1 month. So yeah, I will show a lot of these previews and just go through it, how they work, what is my idea, so you can see adding noise, how they break faster, or you want less, because this creature is moving really fast. And after all these like R&Ds, like I spent like maybe a few weeks trying to find and show and try to capture all the ideas. At the end, this simulation like was really fast, because this was kind of low to mid res. And so I will show you. So and one of the other elements that also me and Tyler need to work together, because he did like impact blast on a, and it kind of, if we didn't interact with the flip, it will kind of look strange, because he really did amazing work. And if you can imagine how Godzilla is big, this blast it's really huge. So in this case, we will show just simple workflow that you can use like other artist elements and add also into your scene. So in this case, I use Tyler blast and just added to break my flip scene. So you can see here just from the different angles, so you can see the trails, and also these are the parts like I was mentioned, if this is the things that I try to kill, so they don't go too far away, because if you think if we go like in a full flip scene, this will be a lot of sprays and single points that will kind of disturb and give us the wrong scale at the end for our Godzilla. And yeah, so this is like one shot that was done after I did all of this R&D. Almost like 1.5 days was entire scene for almost every shot, because we try to optimize everything, because I know you guys at home, like Tyler said, you don't have render farm, and a lot of this stuff can be hard to simulate. So all this was done in a pretty optimized way that even the caches I try to optimize as much as possible, and we will go through it, how you can optimize almost like 50% smaller cache than what you get by default from Houdini. And so that you get minimal impact on your storage, especially that we at home, we don't have like hundreds of terabytes, storage. So we try to give you like something that you can still work at home and, finish. Like Tyler said, maybe you don't have power to render, because, we know that, rendering 2K, 4K, takes time, but still you can do, really amazing flipbooks. Even if you render like in small HD, it will be enough for you to see. But flipbooks can give already a lot of, information what you did and how you did, especially when supervisor, what Tyler said, when supervisors see, they are mostly like going to look from previews from FX artists, not like final render, because they all know that for that just take time. So this shot was done in like 1.5 days. So I will go to like, first thing is that I simulate like low res fluid. Like this was like few hours sim. As you can see with that air density and killing particles, we can see how they are dying quickly. But then the problem is, in this case, I wanted more details, and especially in the splashes. And because this was like really low res sim, I kind of wanted more emission, in this area. So one thing that I created is like secondary flip sim that was kind of bit more high res than the main sim, but still doesn't take in so much time because you're not going to simulate like entire tank with high res sim. So this is as you can see here, these are secondary flip sim that are coming like small trail, and they are dying pretty fast because I just want them to have like interesting sources for whitewater. And also this is also one idea that is presenting like up-res workflow, and then you can combine these both sim together and run whitewater. So the whitewater at the end will actually see this as a as a single sim. So this can be like how you can do like low res flip sim, add like secondary splashes, like up res only area that you want, and then combine and then run the whitewater sim, that whitewater that emit even from the secondary flip splash sim will collide with the main body of the water. So you get like one uniform sim domain that you can then use for whitewater sims. So that's also what we are going to show. And at the end, this is like just whitewater sim coming from both low res sim and secondary splash sim. So all of these three sims and all this combined, and all this was done less than 24 hours. If I just look at the same time. So this is now all together like preview. So for this shot, and these are the same preview just from the camera angle, so you can see how everything looks. So you can see low res sim, and it's just adding the sourcing for our secondary. All these tendrils that are in air now from the low res sim, we are going to remove them and just emit for the secondary. So you can see splashes, just flips, just add a bit more details, or maybe we want to be them to be stronger. And sometimes all of these going back to the main sim, it's kind of takes time. If they suddenly they want, when they had impact water, maybe they want stronger splash, and then going back to the flip sim, it will just to the main one, you just need to resimulate everything. So why not just use secondaries flip sim, and you have a lot of nice details, and especially for the simulating foam at the end. And this is how the whitewater look after we combine all together. And some of especially for the whitewater for Godzilla, we are going to use like some hidden attribute that was part of whitewater solver back in Houdini 19. You just, there was a way to expose them, but now in Houdini 20 and later they are kind of added that relative density attribute for us, so we can actually use it pretty straightforward and give that kind of sense where the particles are more dense, they're heavier, when they are less dense, they're kind of lighten, and you get these kind of nice shapes where bigger volume is going forward, and the less and less they're kind of drag with the air, or with the wind, or even if you want to simulate pyro for the wind, they can be dragged with the pyro. And this is the preview of that shot simulated, also rendered at home on my machine. So each only thing that is missing here is maybe running multiple wedges of the whitewater sim, so that we can maybe do like 5 sims 20, 30, 50 million per sim. So that because we don't simulate like 500 million, points in just one sim. We just do like multiple, different seed sims and then combine them for the rendering. And then, like I said, using that same setup, like even from this shot, I was able to simulate this shot pretty fast. I think it only took like few days, trying, because there was a huge impact at the end. So I just, based on the wedges that I showed here, it's just, okay, I need maybe more noise to break it faster. And this is the render like single scene through few shots. That's the same shot that Tyler was saying when the impact happened. So this is like render one long scene through multiple cameras. And like I said, it's all based on all the shots are based on the same setup with the same idea and, pretty fast to simulate. This is just different angle so that we're able to finish like, 10 shots of flip fluid sim like in less than a month with also R&D and everything. So yeah, we will go over it, especially, how you can optimize everything, how you can simulate pretty fast. And all this, I try to make it really simple, because I know some of you guys are still using, older Houdini, so you don't need to use like newest Houdini. So for this case, I use like really default old setup, flipped up. So everything is, as you will add, so you don't need to know anything too much about flip sim. You just need to know basis.
Awesome, Igor. That's pretty cool stuff. It's nice, despite not talking to you a lot throughout this process, that a lot of what you're doing and what I'm doing is like a lot of the same mindset. Like, okay, we want to make it efficient. We want to start simple and go complex if we need to. I like how you did the procedural foam because I know I was on a show. I wasn't part of these shots, but they were doing a boat wake, and it like, oh, it was a mess. Like we blew the budget on it. They were trying to do really articulate foam wakes on there, lots of stuff, and I think they ended up going after like a month and like over budget, all this stuff, going in with a setup similar to what you did, which is more procedural, artist driven controls, some sim if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems is that, when you're doing, especially like, let's say large, like you said, ship trails and stuff like that, is that, immediately, okay, we will go to simulate flip and then we will like large tank and all this. But sometimes it's like you said, I'd like to go really simple, let's try, maybe that idea at the end will not work. But eventually, maybe we can just simulate if we have like, let's say ship armada, maybe we just simulate the hero one and back the ship just do with the idea that I try, maybe it's not working for close up, but working really good for mid or, far shot. So why not use it, because, I think at the end, like, control, especially director, they want, different camera angles. We want different foam, different shapes. And with this setup, you can create hundreds of different look of the foam because at the end, also the funny thing is that I use this setup in production a few times, and it's not me that actually painting the foam. I asked the maid painter guys, can you just make the foam trail, how director want, and I will just take that texture and put it in shot, and that's it. So it was a lot easier than me going into Photoshop trying to paint okay, left and right, But yeah, that was, I mean, that was kind of especially the wakes, behind the ship. That was like always the problems that you need to have, like especially on a calmer water, you need to have like long Kelvin wakes, and there is a tools for it, but sometimes this tool doesn't work especially good with this, with the spectrum. And setup that I actually sharing is, really simple to use. It's working with the spectrum. It can also be used in a guide sim or weighting sim too. So it actually, pretty straightforward setup. I mean, there is a limit also in that setup. It's not like, setup that will work through all the shots, but can give you really nice, this kind of shape waves, and you can really manipulate the look. And like I said, it can be part of the guide sim or just displacement. So we will show, some ideas that can be used.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me in terms of like what does it mean for being like an intermediate to a senior to a supervisor level effects artist is knowing the best solution for the task at hand. So, and that's all dependent on what you're working on. So a setup that you're doing for a commercial or a TV show is going to be totally different. In some situations, different than what you're going to be doing on a Marvel blockbuster, right? Because in a TV show, you have 3 days to do a wig sim, right? Marvel, they're going to be spending it on months, right? If you work at some of these bigger studios, so it's knowing the tools that you have and knowing which way to go on, because you got to think ahead, like what's the director going to comment on, what's the director going to say, what notes am I going to have to address. And so I like to start simple, and then sometimes it's like, hey, we're not able to address these notes, but we're able to get quicker iterations faster. And I think that's a huge thing, is like they don't want to see something once every week. Sometimes they might, but they want to see especially at the beginning, they want to see lots of quick tests defining the look, because that time is really important, because you're trying to nail down the look of the show, and talk with the director and everything before it gets crazy. So it's spending the time doing quick iterations at the beginning. So like you were saying, like, hey, we could do a foam, a high res flip sim with foam wake and iterate, but we might get especially if you're having to do it on all the ships for like a trailer shot, it might take you a week just to turn around. Where if we have our other setup, it might take us like a day or two, right? And so like there's always trade-offs in quality and efficiency, and knowing the best way to go forward is, I think, extremely important. And hopefully, some of the setups that we provide will help you make that decision in the future.
Yeah, and especially, I think one of the issues that I tried to kind of address here is that, going through these wedges that I was showing now, is that you can see that, let's say, the main flip and the secondary splashes, they don't look anything specific. They look like, yeah, it's like, sim that you can do in a half an hour. But that's kind of the idea that I wanted to show, is that most of the junior, artists and some artists that try to learn, like, flip sim especially, is that they start to focus too much on the main sim, but they don't look like complete picture. Like, why you're spending so much days and days on the main flip sim, because at the end the white water will cover everything. No one will see the flip sim, and maybe especially that they don't look the shot like, okay, let's see how that shot will look. Maybe especially, for that particular frame, when everything happened, ship will go through you, so you will not see anything. So why you are, like, spending so much time just on the main scene, because it will be kind of covered just a huge white cloud of, of water, and then, someone will pass, or ship will cover it or something. So that was the idea here, just to kind of show, okay, even with the, let's say, ugly sims at the beginning, you can still get really amazing, like secondaries and, white water, because at the end, white water, especially for our project, was white water sell the scale, not like main sim or, secondary sim. The white water sell the, the how the details, the motion and everything. So sometimes the artist kind of look too much to the like beginning of everything, not like looking at the complete picture. So that was the idea that we showed here. Also, okay, let's see how that will look. Go through the references. Okay, this is what we try to get, but let's try to get with a minimal amount of time, and especially simulation time.
Yeah, we also saw in Igor's playblast a lot of the wedge parameters. So he has a whole bunch in there of different settings and everything. And even when he had a whole bunch, he would also specifically be testing one, whether it's drag, whether it's, I don't know necessarily what parameters you have, but we're focusing on one. And that's something I do in mine. I don't have quite the big list, and I just kind of have the ones that we're iterating on. But we really go like in depth about like, hey, what does turbulence do? turbulent size was too big, too small, what's drag, what's too much drag, what's too much of this setting. And I think you showed it a little bit in yours, but we're doing the same as well in mine. I just didn't necessarily show it, but and that's super important to show, like, hey, we're going with these settings. Why are we going with these settings? And why does, for mine, all segments, I'll turn off the parameter. So I'll turn off disturbance, turn off whatever. I'll do it too little, I'll do it right the amount, and then I'll do it too much, and I'll have a kind of a quad view. And I'll go through, each parameter in some of our main sims that way, of like, okay, hey, this is why we went with this setting and why it looks bad here, it looks good here. And I think it speaks to a little bit about what you're doing as well with your stuff, Igor.
Yeah, I mean, especially, most of this stuff, we kind of use it on a daily basis, and we know what noise and how noise will look, but the problem is that sometimes, I can tell you just add the noise, or, we added the noise on this and that's it, you are done. But especially sometimes it's hard to know what that noise will do. That's why I like to do these kind of wedges, especially, maybe you tell me like immediately, Igor, just use noise with the parameter, 555 or whatever, and that will work. Maybe that works, like you said, for your shot, but I like to see what kind of different noise scale or noise amplitude, what they will do. So for example, in my case, because like you said, we use same idea, but just in a different workflow. Maybe noise that I'm using, I need to be like more stronger amplitude because I want particles to die quickly, so it need to break it faster because of my low res sim. In your case, you don't want that. You want your pyro to have a noise, but not that strong, because you have like 200 frame sim, so you want noise to be there, but not impacting the sim a lot. But at the end, we still use the same noise, same thing. You just in a different in a different manner. You're adding your noise to add details in your sim, and I'm adding the noise to kind of kill the sim more or less, because I want to add secondaries. So that's one thing that I like about this project. Using almost at the end, same nodes, like maybe 50%, similar idea, similar setup, but they just use in a different different manner. You to sell the beautiful shot, I to kill the shot. So yeah.
And just on a personal note, something that I often do is that I'll have a sim, and then I'll have a flip book of a sim, and I'll spend like, let's say I have 2 hours left in the day. I'll spend like 2 hours or so, or however much time, to like try to do better than that sim. So is it less of a parameter or more of a parameter? And I'll just play around, and I call it the gauntlet, and I'll have the hero, my good sim on my right side of my screen, and then my other sim, the test one, on the left. And I'll iterate to try to get better than the other sim. And if I do, I use those settings. If not, I know that those settings that I had before are good. And that's where wedging is useful, like wedging parameters and stuff. I normally won't like wedge parameters and do a bunch of sims overnight. I'll do kind of local ones and just use that side-by-side comparison. But there's so many other ways to approach something like that. It's like, okay, we have a sim, let's try to do better, and what parameter gets us that way.
Yeah, I mean, one thing also is that I see that it's not used so much, especially with the artists at home, is that I look as a wedges that I do. I have like multiple of them, even for fun, taking some assets and just run the wedges. I just look them as a library, something that almost like a reference. If you take, reference of, waves hitting the beach, or, explosion, you will always find like 10 different explosions, maybe even same one, but with if you can find it with, less fuel, more fuel. But also one thing is that I see that artists don't use at home is that they have their machine. Like if you are working, on site or remote, they have second machine that are not doing anything, or they go overnight. Why just not run the wedges? They are really cheap to simulate. You can, at the end, you just need like, JPEG, sequence or, movie file that you just want to see, okay, let's try a few parameters, just run overnight. You can overwrite the same cache so you don't, go out of the storage. And at the end, in the morning you can, 20 scene. I mean, that's more or less what I do. Just prepare the scene files, run it, and in the morning I have, previews, what that noise did, or these kind of, settings or this and that. And at the end you have, in a few days you have, I don't know, 50 different wedges that you can learn from it. Because sometimes the what documents say, but till you don't see, I mean, that's how I like to work, because you don't see it, how that actually really work. Especially, in our case, we don't simulate with one resolution. We always simulate, if it's large scale, it's 0.5, it's small scale 0.01. The settings, the parameter, they don't give you the same look. It's not like, okay, I will just do the different res, everything will look the same. So I think, trying this, and this is something that I also show here, why to go with high res when the mid res or low res give you the same initial look that you can add later. So yeah, that's something that, I think that many of the artists, if they have free machines at home, don't use it that much.
Cool. So let's dive into the Q&A. We got some questions. I'll be kind of pushing us through these questions. These are questions some of you guys have asked about the course and what we're going to be going over. Some of the first ones are, will there be hit files to recreate complex scenes? We talked about this a good amount. Yep, we have all the hit files. And a lot of times my situations will have incrementing hit files. So we have a shot at this stage, and then as I'm progressing through the different modules, we add more and more stuff to that hit file. So you not only have the finished product, we have, okay, hey, how are we progressing through the shot, and what are we doing? And Igor will be doing the same. We have Axiom and Pyro, these are mine, setups for all the major simulations. How will you show how to create the jet exhaust and trails from the jet fighter? So not from the jet itself. We won't see the afterburners or contrails from the jet. Those weren't visible and those weren't a main part. But we will see how to do the missile trails that come off from the jet and trail behind. So we're going to be going over those. And those are similar to what we're doing for the cannons. How much XPU-based shaders will be covered for volume rendering for both whitewater and Pyro? So right now, there's a pretty good workflow of creating CPU and XPU-based shaders, and we'll be going over that and what that takes. With that said, everything was done in CPU rendering. XP won't work for some of the large-scale ocean work and the 4K resolution. So I think even since the last Houdini version, which I think I started this project on 19.5 and then went up to 20, and then we have 20.5. XPU is getting better, so they have adaptive sampling. It's more efficient. Lots of good stuff to be able to use XPU, but just because of those limitations, and a caveat that I don't have a render farm and my machine is 7 years old. So if it was, some parts of it were painful, and so at least I wanted to go in with those expectations of like, hey, this is what my machine is. This is what some other artist machines might look like. I don't want to use a 4090 and say it's easy. I'm going to kind of live with those expectations. So because I only had 8 gigs of RAM, VRAM on mine, mine was CPU based, and I think Saber's rendering was as well. But if you could do XPU, we provide a lot of the setups for that and show you what to do in those situations. But yeah, feel free and go for it. Will the course be an in-depth dive of a few aspects of effects, or can you show how to create a broad range of things? Yeah, I feel like we go over a lot of stuff in that trailer. So the trailer showed a lot of stuff. We had light and heavy flip. So I have some light flip in my modules. Just kind of briefly going over some of it. sort of really easy out of the box way. Don't spend too much time on it. But then we have really complex stuff from Igor, really going into the settings and to supplement and really expand upon Flip in general, and a lot of really great stuff. But then on top of that, we have bubbles, we have particulate, we have rocket trails, we have cannon blasts, we have missile trails from the ships, and we have everyone's favorite explosions, and we have some one-off effects as well. And we have some debris. We don't have sparks, but we have debris, a lot of cool stuff. So a really wide range of effects that we dive in, and really gives the viewer something to go off of and to learn from. And then we go into rendering, we go into compositing. So what we asked students is, what do you hope to achieve at the end of action movie effects in Houdini course? And these are just some of the things that people said. By the end of the course, we'd like to achieve a great quality, realistic output, not just effects, but in all aspects, including shading, lighting, rendering. I hope to learn more about creating engaging shots that involve a variety of effects like jet and missile trails, ocean effects, explosions, pyro, and I'd like to be able to composite all these shots together. And that's something that some of you guys said, and yes, we really lean into all this. We don't hold back on showing you guys what we presented. One question for Igor that maybe you can go into is, what assets will be provided?
Yeah, so in this case, we will provide Godzilla with the displacement and, with all the textures that needed, and also animations for all the shots. And because the idea for this entire project is that we didn't want to focus, like, let's say Godzilla hit with a missile and splash into the water. We really want to make it a story. We want to make it, in this case, trailer for something that can be expand. And this is something that we think that you guys can do it, that you can make, maybe different type of the story, maybe with a different angles, or maybe expand it even more. That's why we will provide it with all animation for all the shots. And there is like 15 plus shots that we have in our trailer, and you will have the camera for all the shots, but you are free to create your own. The only thing that for the ships itself, they are going to be the proxy models, but you are free to use any ship that you want. And I think this is something that I eager you to do, is that you don't replicate stuff that we have. So maybe you can just, add your ships, or maybe create, armada of more ships, or, something else that can be, used. Or maybe you change complete the story using our animation, change the shots, or, and especially is that, when you are working, because I'm working remotely, from home, like 15 years, one of the biggest problem is that it's always hard to find the assets. Always hard to find, good animations, or, good models. But in this case, we are providing animation in many different, ways. Like, you have Godzilla swimming, you have Godzilla falling, you have Godzilla rising from the water. So you have one asset with many different animation that, like Tyler said, can be used in a totally different way. You can have Godzilla rise from the ground, or from the lava, or from the water. Godzilla impact on the building, or impact on, I don't know, some truck or something. So you can use these animations, even if they're not part of this project. You can use them, however you want. And I found this really valuable, that having single assets with totally different animations can give you variations that you can use. For example, Tyler blast setups, it can be done on a totally different shots. You can tell a totally different story, not even using the flip. Or it can be opposite. You can use flip or mud and just without Tyler explosion. But at the end, you can tell the story however you want. Many times you see someone do the workshops or tutorials, and at the end you see hundreds of same tests online. Like, okay, can someone just change the camera or just lighting, because everyone use the same lighting, and at the end we are watching, in my case, same whale jump from the same camera angle, just splashing. Yeah, okay, please just change the angle and it will look different. So, that always happen. And I think the industries kind of get bored of it, like, okay, we know who did the workshop and who did the result. Can you just change something so that it can be your own mark? But no, they just want to, do the same thing.
Yeah. But like, at the same time, like, feel free to do that, guys. Like, you could do that, but we really want to take you, like, step it up to the next level. And it might be fine to like show a whale thing, but then like there's so much more stuff to be gained from taking that on and going a step up. And I think something as a plug for a lot of other Rebel Way workshops, what they always provide is consistently provide this stuff, whether it's with the workshops, whether it's with the contests. Like they spend, you guys spend a lot of high quality, you guys spend time and money to create these animations. Like we had an animator for this shot working on stuff and doing something in a professional way to give you really good stuff to work from. One is that how much compositing will be covered, how much in detail will we go over setting up the background, the matte paint or sky. So talking about some of the environments in terms of compositing those and setting those up. We will be covering compositing a nuke on some of the unique shots. One of the shots at the beginning where we go up from the under the water up above the water and go from there. I'll be really going into depth about that and how I did the HDRI or how I did the environment. It's a pretty much 16K HDRI that I'll be providing. And it's done with a projection and nuke, and I'll be going over that. And then I think Saber is also going over some of the compositing as well. We're going to go into all the hero shots and what we did for those and what we learned and applied to the other ones. Other questions we have: it would be great to see more XPU-based rendering, also including tips on using render farm services so that clustering simulations, batch rendering dependencies can be covered. This will help pupils who don't have heavy hardware for rendering or simulations. So talking about the XPU rendering, we don't go over that much. We can, but there's a lot of really good information that SideOfX provides about XPU rendering. At least for my section, we're setting our stuff up with the Material X shader, with XPU compliant shaders, and the same stuff can be applied to Igor stuff, at least I know as well. So if you want to render with XPU, feel free, but we just know that it's kind of despite being faster than CPU, there's the VRAM kind of limit that you can run into. So again, we wanted to make it available for everyone. That's why we went with a CPU base, but I will be going over extensively GPU based Pyro simulations and Axiom. I think it's 5+ times faster than Pyro, and I'll be going to that. In terms of farm-based farm services, no, I have used grid markets. I recommend grid markets. That will help a lot of the issues with working on your local machine. I highly recommend them. And then in terms of clustering sims, yes. Batch rendering, yes. And dependencies, I'll be going over as well. I don't use dependencies as much just because I use a lot of deadline personally from my side. Yeah, and I think our biggest hope is you guys take what we provide, the 35+ hours, 10 weeks of courses of material, and create something better than we've done, or something awesome, something like, we just provide, a lot of the basics, to create what we create, but then taking it up and getting that job, getting that awesome demo reel shot, and putting yourself a good place in the industry and showing what you can do. And hopefully we can get you guys there. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar. Hopefully this has been informative, answered your questions, showing you a little bit more about behind the scenes, about what we're going to be providing. This was all recorded for you. None of this will be used in the course. So all the course stuff is this plus so much more. And the course is available, and we hope to really dive in with you guys throughout this course. Cool. See you guys.
Bye.